California. Until the 1850s, no light shone from these fabled shores where Amazon warriors carried swords of gold.
People are both in awe and in love with lighthouses.
I always had that weird feeling about the lighthouse.
Being here in this lighthouse on this beautiful island is a simple gift.
Without the lighthouses, we would have had untold wreckage all up and down the coast.
This is the end of America.
In December of 1856, the Battery Point Lighthouse first cast its beam from the craggy shores of Crescent City in the far north corner of the Golden State. The lighthouse is operated as a museum by the Del Norte County Historical Society.
Okay, before I send you upstairs to the tower, I'd like to show you a couple things.
Carol Vestal and her husband Don are modern-day lightkeepers.
What I want to point out is this gray pole, which is actually a hollow tube, and this is actually called the waitway. Through this, the keeper had to crank 200 pounds of weights from the basement to the base of the light every 8 hours. And as those weights lowered back through, it would turn the gears below the light. That kept that light rotating all night long and sending that flash of light out. Okay, so now I'd like to send you upstairs to Don and see the tower. You're welcome.
Don Vestal relishes his role as keeper.
Hi, how you people today? Good. Well, you're in Captain Pylan's dedicated room. He was our last lighthouse keeper, and when he left in 1953, it was turned over to the Historical Society, and it's been lived in continuously for about 140 years. Being a modern lighthouse keeper involves not as many chores as the old guys do that they had to do. I think the best part of it is meeting and dealing with the people. This is our bedroom. This is where Carol and I live. They always like our tours, and they kind of get into the old history that we get into with them, and they just kind of envelop themselves in this. And of course, Carol and I do too. The history just feels really good. We do tours to 10,000 people here each year, just Carol and I, in 6 months. Some people don't really believe that we live here. They think we're docents. And they say, do you actually live right in this lighthouse? I tell them, yep, that's my side of the bed and that's my teddy bear.
I certainly feel a lot of respect for the keepers' wives. I can't imagine Mrs. Jeffries out here for 4 years. She had a couple of babies born here in the lighthouse, going up and down those stairs. When you think of the old days, they didn't have lights to turn on. They were carrying maybe a candle and a baby up and down the stairs. Especially in this lighthouse, the lighthouse keeper's wife was the assistant keeper. It's fulfilling a fantasy I never thought I'd ever get to do. When the tide's out and the people are here, it's a lot of activity and fun. But when that tide comes in, it just makes for a lot of wonderful moments.
We sit outside and watch the sunset. Then, of course, we'll come into here and light the candles sometimes, play the Victrola with the old records, and just kind of walk through this place wondering what else happened here. Here we are, we're just a long line of people who have been and going to be in this lighthouse. And so we just sit here and just enjoy this. We just enjoy being alone and being in such a historic building, and it's all ours.
This may be the most legendary of all the legendary lighthouses. St. George Reef Light stands 2 miles offshore at a place once known as Dragon Rocks. It took 10 years to build. Construction costs approached $750,000. an astounding sum in 1892. During the light's working years, the turbulent seas claimed 5 lives. Bob Boland and Guy Towers share a dream of preserving the old lighthouse and returning it to some useful purpose.
In 1986, I was transferred to Crescent City, and just coincidentally, St. George Reef was up for sale by the federal government. And I began to ask questions around town, find out who would be interested in starting a preservation group up here. I contacted Bob Boland, and we put together a nonprofit organization. And after 10 years, we finally accomplished our goal of getting jurisdiction over the lighthouse.
Well, I grew up in Del Norte County during the Depression. Lighthouses were off limits, mysterious. St. George Reef Lighthouse is a jewel of lighthouses. See it from the beach was the other side of the world as far as I was concerned as a kid. Never really dreaming that I'd get out there.
Over the years, we came across some fabulous historic materials that showed what the lighthouse looked like on the inside, interviewed keepers and knew more about the lighthouse that way. And I was finally able to go out and land at the lighthouse with the Coast Guard. And it was almost like I was visiting an old friend.
We're in the engine room. Originally they had steam engines. They had to transport coal here for them. This is the galley. This is where they spent most of their time, did their cooking.
Our big challenge is scraping the paint off.
Now that we're going up to the cruise quarters, all this flooring has to come up. It's going to be quite a project. And finally we end up in the lantern room. The lantern room is our big problem because of the glass being busted. We've got to do something about that.
I think I described St. George as being the Mount Everest of lighthouses. There's no other lighthouse that matches it in the world. Because St. George is a wave-washed lighthouse that's exposed to the full brunt of the ocean and has taken a pounding from the Pacific Ocean for over 100 years. And it's as solid as the day it was built.
Halfway between San Francisco and the Oregon border lies California's Lost Coast, one of the most rugged and wild areas in the United States. The Cape Mendocino Lighthouse once stood as a proud sentinel, guarding the northern end of this untamed coast. This is as far west as you can go in California. 1,400 feet above the sea, it's the highest headland in the state. These haunting views will never be seen again. In the spring of 1998, the old light tower was moved. The restored structure will be displayed farther south at the town of Shelter Cove. A soulless, modern beacon reliably and automatically sends its light seaward. When it too finally outlives its purpose, will even the wind mourn its passing? The Point Cabrillo Light is perched on some of the most desirable acreage along the Mendocino County coast. It's a favorite spot for hikers, birders, nature lovers, and anyone seeking solitude. This beautiful light station has been protected and is being restored by the California Coastal Conservancy. Conservancy site manager Lisa Wegg has responsibility for the lighthouse and the 300-acre nature preserve that surrounds it.
This would have been a housing development of 55 new homes, and there was a lot of community concern about saving this last bit of undeveloped coastline and the light station. Now that we've set aside the money to preserve it from development, we're trying to restore the light station to keep it from falling apart. One of the things that's special about it is that you can walk down here and see what a turn-of-the-century light station looked like. If you can overlook the rust and the paint flakes, the buildings are little changed, and the undeveloped property around the light station looks much as it did when the lightkeepers kept their cattle and their sheep and raised potatoes and forage crops. I think that lighthouses are both a warning beacon and a signpost, and we all need those in our lives, and we're attracted to that symbology. But I think mostly people are attracted to the peace and the history, the stories, the adventure aspect of lightkeeping.
The 115-foot monolith at Point Arena is one of the tallest in California. Its light first shone in 1870. The devastating San Francisco earthquake of 1906 severely damaged the old light tower, and a new reinforced concrete tower replaced it. Bill Owens was keeper from 1937 to 1952. His 6 daughters spent their formative years here, and they often return for a family reunion. Diana, Shirley, and Sarah reminisce, a rare moment of living lighthouse history.
We had no television. We had a radio that we listened to once in a while, such as Inner Sanctum. And the day the war broke out, I know we were playing outside, and Dad called all of us in. And he sat us down to where we'd have to listen to the radio about Pearl Harbor. I look back on it, we had a very good life. And it's something that I wish somehow I could get back to it.
I think one thing about being raised on a lighthouse, though, all of us are somewhat loners, I think. We don't like to be, like in the
Like
cities
this.
or crowds or anything like this, we're all somewhat loners.
We don't need a lot of people around us.
Yeah.
We make our own fun, our own entertainment. We still do today.
Oh, look at the sea lions on the...
Where?
Aren't the sea lions on the rocks out there? Yeah, they're one goes down.
And that was a nice sound to hear, too, when the sea lions were barking.
Yeah.
On that island up the road. Whenever I get, frustrated or stressed where I live right now, I go to the beach. There's nothing so calming as the waves coming in.
Especially when it's stormy. That's the best time to be out on the beach, so it's stormy.
And when the fog comes in, I used to love to sit in front of the fireplace with the foghorn going, and it's all white around you. It's just like it's covered with a blanket. It's beautiful.
And even the light coming through your bedroom window, every few seconds, it irritated a lot of people, I presume, but it was just very comforting.
My dad had taught us to turn the lighthouse on. We all had to do that. But it was just a job to us, and it was just our home, and I never thought about what it was doing for the ships or anything. It was just our life.
You don't realize the importance of it or the beauty of it until you got older and moved away from it.
We're going to hit the lottery, and then we're all going to go together and buy a lighthouse and live on it.
Right.
You betcha.
That'd be wonderful.
Just north of San Francisco, the 71,000 acres of Point Reyes National Seashore hosts more than 450 species of birds and 37 species of land mammals. The sheltered cove near the lifeboat station in Drake's Bay is a safe haven for fishermen of all species. The Marine Mammal Center is one of the largest and most unusual wild animal hospitals in the world. The center rescues, rehabilitates, and releases hundreds of distressed marine mammals each year. The quiet waters at Chimney Rock Beach are a favored release site. Aaron Frank, Guthrum Purdon, and Rebecca Dewar are volunteers whose love for the animals transcends occasional danger or discomfort.
We just released 3 elephant seals and 2 sea lions, and these 5 animals were stranded on the Central California coast. They were treated at our hospital, and all were healthy enough to be released, so today they got to go home.
We help them as much as we can until they're back up to a good weight, till their wounds have been treated, or their parasites, whatever, have been taken care of, and then we release them.
A lot of times we're up in the middle of the night and very cold and wet, and it's still an interesting, rewarding thing to do.
I originally started working with the marine mammals because it would seem to me to be a very adventurous and exciting thing to do. But over the past 10 years that I've been working with them, I've really found it that I just really love these animals. That's it for me, to be able to really work with these animals and to be able to spend some of my life with them.
So treacherous are the waters around Point Reyes that there were 46 shipwrecks recorded in the 60 years after the lighthouse began operation. Each evening before sunset, a lightkeeper would have to descend these 300 steps to light the oil lamps that illuminated the lantern. The old lighthouse was retired in 1975. The Park Service has preserved it as a tribute to the romantic era of lightkeepers and beautiful yet functional craftsmanship.
This is where we stand, right here at Point Reyes.
Park Ranger Brian Aptekar conducts a moonlight tour of the lighthouse.
Runs parallel here with Tamales Bay. Basically, if you're going up and down the coast, this sticks 10 miles out into your way. And we're known for fog. This is the foggiest point on the west coast, the windiest point on the west coast. It's quite an obstacle. There have been many a ship that have wrecked right here. In the first couple years of the gold rush, some 700 ships came towards the bay. But because of fog, because of topography, because of the Farallones, about half of them wrecked in the Bay Area before getting to port in San Francisco. Light bulbs went off in people's heads. Maybe we need a lighthouse. As we go down the stairs, I want you to imagine what life would be like out on this windy, foggy place, that it's a time tunnel, and we're walking back in time to 1870 when this was first built, and you're coming to apply for the job of lighthouse keeper. So you can imagine walking down this in like thick fog and just holding on. Sometimes they'd have to crawl back up, it was so windy. The Coast Guard gave the historic light to the Park Service because we are an agency that preserves historic structures and interprets the history for everybody. The Coast Guard has a completely different mission, and giving tours isn't part of that. So let's step back inside if we could. It's a little less windy and probably easier to hear and warmer too. Here at Point Reyes, you can see, barely, we're sticking out into the coast, it'll say FL5 sec. That's our address. Flashing 1 every 5 seconds. So, how do you make a lighthouse flash every 5 seconds? We've got 24 panels of glass. The source of light from inside isn't focused yet, it's just a light. It could be an oil-burning wick, it could be kerosene, it could be an electric bulb. But basically, it's a general light source. Each vertical panel focuses the light from within. What you have is 24 beams of light, like giant spokes on a wagon wheel. It isn't flashing every 5 seconds, though. What do we need to do? In this case, what they did was spin the lens, the whole 6,000 pounds of it, sitting on these little brass chariot wheels, spun around at just the right speed so that as one of those beams turned and passed your eyes at sea, it appeared that it flashed every 5 seconds. Now you've got the source of light going like it is now, shining out through those lenses, creating beams of light outside. Now comes the hard part. You have to crank up the weight. There's a 175-pound weight hanging on this cable there. The weight of that on the cable is pulling on the mechanism right inside here. The cable is pulling on the drum is turning the whole mechanism. There's 1,032 pieces of glass, a whole lot of brass and metal, and it takes just 2 fingers to get it going. A little nudge, and it starts spinning.
Point Bonita Light, on the Marin headlands of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, guards the northern entrance to San Francisco Bay. Since 1877, it has warned sailors off the rocks and beckoned them to the earthly delights of Baghdad by the Bay. John Martini, the park's curator of military history, was a supervisor at the lighthouse for 5 years and worked with the Coast Guard on its restoration.
It isn't the biggest lighthouse, it's not the oldest lighthouse, but it sure is probably one of the most dramatic lighthouses on the California coast. This is the end of America. Some lighthouses I like because of the technology and the history that's there, the architecture. Some lighthouses really speak to you because of their location. When you walk out to Point Bonita, you feel you're really going to about as remote a site as you can be on and still be physically on North America. Next stop are offshore rocks. When you're out here, you feel that you're very small. The ocean, the wind, the waves, erosion, those are the powers that are in charge. When you're out there and you're snug in that brick tower, all you have to do is look out through the windows and realize how puny these efforts are, yet how important.
Wayne Wheeler founded the United States Lighthouse Society, a nonprofit historical and educational organization.
I was in the Coast Guard as an officer and a civilian for years, and I'm very much in tune with our maritime history, and I also am fascinated with architecture. One thing about the California lighthouses is that they had the Fresnel lens from the beginning. The first 16 lighthouses, all built between 1854 and 1860 by the outbreak of the Civil War, were all similar in design. They're basically a story-and-a-half Cape Cod style house with a tower through the middle. The contractor had a choice to either construct them out of brick, granite, or rubble stone, whichever was prevalent in the area. I think one of the most charming things about lighthouses is some of the detail. I think when most people think of federal buildings, they think of great gray slabs, impersonal structures created for efficiency. Lighthouses are different. They're federal structures for sure, but they have personal touches on them, or whimsy or warmth, such as gargoyles for rain spouts on the dome of the lantern rooms, or gingerbread on the redwood lighthouses constructed in California. And of course, lighthouses being part of our maritime past, they are a symbol of the sailor coming home, of safe passage. To some, they're religious. They point to the sky, they're the light against the darkness. They're that picket fence along the coast, the fence between terra firma, although not so firma out here, and that dangerous sea that covers 3/4 of the earth.
Alcatraz Island, notorious prison home of Al Capone and the Birdman, had humble beginnings as a guano-encrusted pelican rookery. The Rock is one of the city's most popular tourist attractions. The U.S. government saw it as a strategic site and located California's first lighthouse here. Park ranger and author John Martini has researched and written extensively about the history of Alcatraz.
In January of 1848, gold was discovered. When word got out, as one historian put it, the world rushed in and San Francisco exploded. It was a town of shacks and tents and gambling halls and drunk 20-somethings. It averaged several murders a night. Ships were coming into San Francisco and the crews were jumping ship and heading for the gold fields. It was insanity. And in the middle of all this, the U.S. government was tasked with trying to defend this madhouse and protect those ships coming in. This island was recognized early on as a giant hazard to navigation. Sitting right in the middle of San Francisco Bay, all shipping in and out of the harbor had to go around this rock, or in many unfortunate cases, they hit it right by accident. So when the U.S. government laid out its recommendations for lighthouses right at the start of the gold rush, number one priority was given to that giant hazard in the center of San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz Island. Almost simultaneous with the lighthouse being built, the Army fortified the slopes of Alcatraz with hundreds and hundreds of gun emplacements to fight off any bad guys that might try to take over San Francisco. It also seemed logical to send prisoners here. If they were doing hard time, they might as well do hard time on a hard place, and Alcatraz was that place. So pretty soon the little Cape Cod lighthouse was surrounded not only by gun batteries, but a growing number of prison buildings along the perimeter of the island. A huge cell house below us was constructed using convict labor, and it was such a massive building that pretty soon it towered over the little 1850s lighthouse. So the lighthouse board built the tower that we're standing on to get the light higher than the growing prison building.
Yerba Buena, or Goat Island, is another of the navigational hazards in San Francisco Bay. The lighthouse was built in 1874 and automated in 1958. Walter Fanning has acclaimed the lighthouse that few, if any, can share. Here, his life began.
The house over my shoulder was originally the keeper's quarters. Two families lived in it, one downstairs and one upstairs. I was born in the upstairs quarters in 1909. My grandfather was the assistant keeper here at Yerba Buena Island. And when the keeper's position at East Brother Island was vacated, he was promoted to keeper up there. My granddad was there from 1914 to 21 for 7 years. And I imagine we visited twice a year there. And I have very fond memories of the place.
Walter Fanning has played a key role in the preservation and restoration of this classic Victorian light station.
In February 1980, we started the restoration of the island. The place was in terrible condition. We took our woodworking machines out there and rebuilt the Victorian scrimshaw work that was on the building. In addition to that, we reconditioned the fog signal and got it operating again.
Guests at the East Brother Light Station Inn experience a sound that has long been silenced on the San Francisco Bay. A mere 40 pounds of air pressure generates a bellow that even Godzilla would envy.
It was a surprise birthday present for my husband, Paul.
I'm on the Landmarks Board for the City of San Francisco, and I'm an architect, and part of my practice is historic buildings.
I tend to try to stay in unique areas and places, so this certainly qualifies as someplace that's pretty unique.
John and Laura really take care of you, and you feel like it's a special experience because they do.
Lori Hogan and her husband, John Barnett, share the wide variety of innkeeping duties.
Being an innkeeper out here at East Brother Light Station definitely has its rewards in that I derive a lot of self-satisfaction from having people come out here and having a good time and cooking the 4-course dinner and giving them a tour.
The lighthouse here was built in 1873 by the United States Lighthouse Service. 2 families lived and worked out here, and that's the reason for the staircase that's outside in front of the house. The house was built and run as a duplex. The Coast Guard manned the station until 1969. For 10 years, the house was vacant. At that point, a non-profit organization was formed to try to save the place from being torn down. And in 1980, they came up with the idea of running it as a bed and breakfast to continue to generate revenue to keep it maintained. And that's basically where it stands today.
Working out here as a couple for John and myself has worked out really well. Luckily, we're pretty good friends. I don't know if it would work out well for all couples. When they hire a couple out here, they're looking for kind of an odd combination of qualifications. One of the persons in the couple has to have a Coast Guard ocean operator's license. And in addition to that, the couple obviously has to be willing to do all the other things involved, cooking dinners and breakfast. There's kind of a romantic allure, I think, for a lot of people that lighthouses have. And this one in particular, since it's on an island and kind of in a remote setting, is kind of a really romantic spot.
We have 2 little babies that are about 2 years old now, and this is our first romantic night away since the 2 years.
I do have my pager and my cell phone, and we have called and talked to the nanny a couple of times to make sure everything is fine.
The lighthouse is only a short boat ride from the shore, yet it's an island in time for those fortunate enough to visit. The graceful building evokes a rose-colored era when life seemed simple and architecture was complicated. Ralph and Lisa Wu Shanks have written several books about Bay Area lighthouses and lifeboat stations. Ralph's interest dates back to early childhood visits to the lighthouse at Crescent City.
The Pacific Ocean is the largest geographical feature in the world. It's larger than the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean and the Great Lakes combined. It produces the world's largest storm waves and the largest tsunamis. And so you had to have lighthouses that matched that ocean's grandeur and that ocean's strength. California's classic lighthouses tend to be short and powerful. They tend to be built on high headlands, so there's no need for them to be really high. And at the same time, since there are great distances from one harbor to another, you needed usually powerful first or second order lenses.
Each station was really like a small village where everyone had to do their own farming. They had to raise their own animals. They had to bring in teachers to educate their children. And it was really a very isolated lifestyle, but also very self-contained.
Just a short distance south of San Francisco, travelers on a limited budget may enjoy an overnight lighthouse experience at Point Montara Light Station. The facility is managed by Hosteling International, a worldwide network of low-cost travel accommodations. Rich Lilly was first attracted to this coast by its natural beauty and totally awesome surfing spots.
I've been the manager of the hostel at the Point Montara Lighthouse since 1980, and it was a kind of exciting program. We were a pilot project for the state parks system of California, and we were the first to open as a hostel and to use old historical buildings, especially the lighthouse. Basically, the hostel's open to recreational travelers. We have family accommodations or dorm-style accommodations. We have a couple of kitchens, laundry, telephone, and a nice shared experience for everyone. There's everything from whale watching to fishing to sea kayaking, surfing. There's lots of great hikes in the area here. The coastal range comes into the ocean about 2 miles north of here. You can hike from sea level up to 2,000 feet for the day and see the whole Bay Area. We also try to give the guest the experience of the weather, the ships going by, the whales, the seals, the pelicans. It's just a real exciting place for people to be.
North of Santa Cruz, the classic Seacoast Tower at Pigeon Point remains basically unchanged since its construction in 1872. The 115-foot structure was erected with bricks brought around Cape Horn from the east. The tower was beautifully restored by the Coast Guard and is open to scheduled public tours. Budget overnight lodging is available at the hostel that occupies the keepers' houses.
People are both in awe and in love with lighthouses because it takes them back to that kinder and gentler era that we all think was kinder and gentler, but when we study the actual workings of the lighthouse keeper, why, here at Pigeon Point we tend to explode that myth. It was not an easy job, and it was always one that kept you busy.
Nelson Morosini is an interpretive specialist for the California State Parks.
Keepers stood the 4-hour watch in the watch room at the level just below the lantern room, and of course they had to light the lamp, which took the better part of an hour by the time they had all the wicks lit off and trimmed and the storm panes cleaned on the outside. During the day, there was maintenance work. There was brass to be polished. There were lanterns to be disassembled and cleaned. There was always something happening here in the lighthouse. The best story we have here is the ghost story. Sarah Coburn was the wife of Lauren Coburn, who at one time owned this property. He was unanimously disliked by the locals in Pescadero. Ultimately, Lauren Coburn probably sued or got sued by everybody in San Mateo County, died in Pescadero and was mourned by no one, with the possible exception of his wife, Sarah. One morning, Sarah Coburn was found brutally murdered in her home. Blood on the walls, a blood-stained 2x4. But an autopsy was done on Sarah, Her organs were stored in the physician's office, and soon thereafter her stomach turned up missing before it could be tested. And the story goes that when the fog is in at night here at Pigeon Point and you look up at the lantern, it's not unusual for you to see the image of Sarah Coburn on the lantern room outside, looking toward Pescadero, possibly looking for the person or persons unknown who sent her to her death. Or possibly she may be just looking for her lost stomach.
The incredibly rich marine environment of Monterey Bay attracts both sea creatures and the scientists, fishermen, and tourists who come to see them. Cannery Row and its collection of colorful characters served up a feast for the imagination of John Steinbeck. The Monterey Bay Aquarium and its prestigious research institute are fostering a new awareness of mankind's connection to the sea and obligation to preserve it as a healthy environment. Point Pinos is the oldest continuously operating lighthouse on the West Coast. The original Fresnel lens was first lit in 1855. Automated in 1975, it continues to light the way to Monterey Bay. The lighthouse has been lovingly restored by the Pacific Grove Museum of Natural History and the Adobe chapter of the Questers. Emily Fish, the social light keeper, arrived at Point Pinos in the summer of 1893 with her Chinese servant, Q. The extraordinary Mrs. Fish quickly learned the duties of a lightkeeper and then set out to civilize the light station with books, art, silver, crystal, and crisp linens. At the age of 71, after 21 years of exceptional service in a job usually reserved for men, Emily handed the keys of the lighthouse to her successor. Retired merchant seaman Bruce Handy is well versed in the history and lore of Point Pinos and its most famous keeper.
Emily Fish, she was a very outstanding lady. She had an outstanding record here, 3-star record, inspected every 30 days by the chief inspector. But she hired and fired 32 assistants for inefficiency. She was very demanding. She entertained quite extensively here, sea captains, famous people, politicians. Every Sunday between 2 and 4, she had high tea. She was quite a lady.
Way and up she rises early in the morning. What'll we do when it's fog and storming? What will we do when it's fog and storming? What'll we do when it's fog and storming early in the morning? Light up the lighthouse in the warning.
Hotel owner Miles Williams was once the lead singer with the New Christie Minstrels.
Early in the morning. Way
Sur means south, means it's the south coast, and they call it Big because when you drive down to Big Sur, when you get right into the middle of Big Sur, you'll see these cliffs that drop right off into the sea. It's incredibly dramatic.
Big Sur people are quite vocal in their objection to change. The Post Ranch project was no exception.
There have been such beautiful pieces of land along the coastline that have fallen into the hands of insensitive developers who just want to do whatever they can to get it developed. So we thought, well, before it falls into the hands of someone insensitive, why don't we build a hotel there? We went through a couple of architects, came up with Mickey Munig, and Mickey lived out there on that ridge for 2 weeks in a tent and came back with his drawings and said, I don't think we'll have to cut any trees. And we said, well, that's unusual. How's that? And he said, well, I think we can build triangular units and round units, and we can wedge the triangles into the redwood forest, build them on pilings and not disturb the root systems of the shallow-rooted redwood trees, and I think it'll work. And so I took the drawings and showed them to some hotel friends, and they said, why, you can't get furniture to go in those units. It's going to cost you a fortune to do that. And besides, those triangles, the corners are so tight you can't even walk into the corners. So I told Mickey, I said, hey, they said you can't even walk into the corners, Mickey. He said, well, Miles, when was the last time you walked into a corner? And I thought that was about right. And we decided to go ahead with the project, and it worked out very nicely.
Holly Fassett was raised in Big Sur. After her parents bought the property that became the fabled Nepenthe restaurant. After a life of raising a family and working hard at the eatery, Holly has delightedly discovered her artistic side.
My parents had actually bought it from Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles. They wanted to build a hamburger stand or a hot dog stand down on the highway, but the local people didn't want that, so my mom said, well, let's build it up in the back where we get the beautiful view and nobody will see it from the highway. Everybody in my family, I felt like, except me, was very flamboyant and very artistic. I mean, we grew up around a lot of artistic people, very, really free spirits. You know, Henry Miller and Emil White, and just all kinds of people that were pretty far out. My mother always called them rugged individualists. When I was going to school, we'd get up and get on the school bus and drive down the coast and stop at the various bus stops, and one of them was at the Lighthouse. And I always remember thinking I wouldn't want to live there, though, because there's it's a very different climate. Even though it's in Big Sur, it's usually very windy there, and sometimes very mysterious, and sometimes it's just incredible. It'll be clear everywhere else, but there'll just be this incredible fog that's just drifted around like a cotton covering all around the lighthouse, and you can't even see it. But now, oh my God, it just takes my breath away. It's so incredibly beautiful. And just the way the shadows fall within the crevices and the different colors of it, and the way the ocean on one side is a different color than the other. And I've painted it many times, and I just feel like I want to paint it forever.
Point Sur sits on a monstrous rock on the wild Big Sur coast. Docent Jackie Pappas is a volunteer member of the Central Coast Lightkeepers.
You may have noticed that the outside of this lighthouse is square and the inside here is round. One of the reasons is because this beautiful stairway came around Cape Horn on a sailing ship. Now, it didn't come all put together just like this. It came in pieces. And because back when it was made, things were made by hand, they wanted to make sure that the stanchions would fit into the nuts that would fit into the stand plates. So what they did was they numbered each of them. So you can see through the coats and coats of paint that this is number 6, which goes with stanchion number 6, which goes with stand plate number 6. They did that all the way up so that they had the proper radius that would fit this handrail on it. If someone is sailing past at night and they don't know where they are, the light has what we call a characteristic, so that every 15 seconds you will see a bright flash from the light. Someone looking again in the coastal light list will understand that it's Point Sur that they are off of, because no other lighthouse along this section of the coast will have that same flashing characteristic.
May I speak of those moments after sunrise, when the mist is rising from the sea and the fog is fingering the canyons of Big Sur. Each day lies before us, guarding our lasting plans for continuity.
Margaret Wentworth Owings is a selfless defender of wilderness. The founder of several conservation organizations, she has received numerous honors for her tireless work.
There's something interesting about Big Sur that puts people in their place in life. And many of them aren't even aware that they're not in their place, or that they've never tasted their own place in life. these mountains roll into the sea and the water goes out to infinity, and there's such variables. People who come here, it just becomes something they have to come back to again because it's done something to them. The natural world has been important to me since I was a small child. So I was born with this thing. And then when someone gave me Schweitzer to read when I was 10 years old, I just thought, here's a man who believes just the way I do. Each morning when I awake and swing my feet over the bed and look down the coast, it comes over me again and again at the privilege of living here and how grateful I am for this day. But with this privilege comes a responsibility. Each one of us should have and sense the responsibility that lies with us to guard not only wildlife but growing things and the great immensity and perspective of this coast.
The Point Vicente Light marks the northern approach to Los Angeles Harbor. A relative newcomer, the 67-foot tower was built in 1926. For years, there were reports of a ghostly lady wandering the grounds in search of her lover who had been lost at sea. A clever assistant keeper put the lady to rest when he concluded that her arrival coincided with light refracted from the lens, meeting small patches of fog. This lighthouse is unique in California for its third-order bivalve or clamshell lens. The lens was built in Paris in 1886. It served in Alaska for 40 years before its arrival in Southern California. The Port of Los Angeles is one of the busiest container terminals in the world. It handles nearly 3,000 ship arrivals a year. 30 million tons of cargo are loaded for and unloaded from all points of the globe. A fishing fleet and thousands of pleasure craft also rely on the harbor's aids to navigation. The Angels Gate Lighthouse marks the narrow entrance to the harbor channel. Since 1913, the lighthouse has endured storms, earthquakes, and a collision with a battleship. The Point Fermin Lighthouse was the first to show the way to the Port of Los Angeles on San Pedro Bay. The house was built in 1874 with materials brought around Cape Horn. It is one of the few remaining gingerbread lighthouses. Bill Olison and John Olguin are the sparks that ignited the movement to restore Point Fermin.
The telephone rang one day, and the fellow said, "John Olguin?" I said, "Yep." He said, "If you tell anybody that I called you, I'll get fired. I'm a civilian employee for the United States Coast Guard. And I just found out they're going to come in and overnight bulldoze down the Point Fermin Lighthouse." And I said, "Oh, my dead body." I sat down and I wrote a letter immediately. 2 days later, it came out in the paper. When Bill Olson read about my interest in the lighthouse, he came down to the museum and he said, "I'm a shipbuilder and I'm interested in taking out that chicken coop off that lighthouse and rebuilding it the way it was." I said, "So am I." So we formed the Point Fermin Lighthouse Committee. We shook hands. And from that moment on, we had breakfast once a week at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we planned and schemed how we could restore the Point Fermin Lighthouse.
I started going to sea with my father when I was 2 years of age. I early learned the importance of lighthouses for the aid of navigators, and one of the reasons why my dad's ship would come home safely from one place or the other, thanks certainly in part to the lighthouses. To me, it is a noble structure that's designed for the protection and safety of mankind at sea, and especially the sailors. Lord bless them, even if they're sinners. I claim they're very religious because I grew up listening to a lot of profanity aboard ship when things were going wrong, and I noticed that it was amazing how often they called on God to correct the situation. But they recognized that there's a power, a greater power that's governed what's going on this little spinning sphere of Earth.
The lighthouse building has been restored, but its heart has not. The point firm and lens remains in private hands.
We still do not have the light back. It's on display and it's in the public eye, but I'd like to see that light back in the Point Firm Lighthouse before Bill goes to heaven. He is 94 years old. He's not going to live to be 194. And more than anything else in the world, I pray that somehow the good Lord will see to it that that light comes back home where it belongs. And when it does, folks, we're going to have the biggest party you're ever going to see in San Pedro. We're going to dance in the street. We're going to have the band out here. We're going to have everybody celebrating the fact that San Pedro, since 1874, had this lens that came from France and is now going to be installed where it belongs, on top of the Point Firm Lighthouse.
The Harbor Lights collection is one of the phenomena of the current interest in lighthouse memorabilia. The finely crafted miniatures have found a niche in the highly competitive gift business. Bill Younger is the founder and CEO of Harbor Lights.
A steel rod. Okay. I personally had a very great love from childhood for lighthouses. It was my intent to create a line of lighthouses and put them on the market. It was easier thought of, however, than it was bringing it to fruition. We were told constantly there's not enough interest in lighthouses, therefore we're not interested in spending the money to create a new product, to bring it to market. We were so convinced that lighthouses would not be popular that by doing a limited edition, we felt it had a better chance. It's exceeded our wildest imaginations. We are truly running, and we need skateboards to try to keep up with the demand for the product. We do like to say to people that if you were holding a Harbor Lights piece in your hand next to that actual lighthouse, that you would recognize without a doubt that this is a small replica of that building, instead of just a lighthouse that looks somewhat similar and has a name on it.
The old Point Loma Lighthouse is located on the crest of Point Loma in San Diego's Cabrillo National Monument. The frequently fog-enshrouded cottage-style lighthouse was replaced by this new skeletal steel structure in 1891. The tower was built for strength, not for style. The lens originally ordered for the lighthouse was delayed due to the manufacturer's wish to show it at expositions in Paris and Chicago. A substitute lens was found, and the prize winner stayed in Chicago. Together, these lighthouses show the extremes of lighthouse design. The last keeper here served from 1875 to 1891. The Park Service has carefully refurnished 4 rooms of the lighthouse to appear as they did more than 100 years ago. Ceramic painting was a popular pastime for 19th century ladies. This shell-framed picture is from the lighthouse family's own collection and may have been done by the keeper's wife. In September of 1542, the Portuguese navigator Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo stepped ashore at San Diego to become the first European to set foot in what is now California. Cabrillo would go on to explore 800 miles of coastline without benefit of charts or the warning flash of a lighthouse. The monument to Cabrillo is a testament to all the brave sailors who venture onto unknown seas in pursuit of something so ephemeral as a dream.